Sir, the Vex'thul Hunters just breached containment, and the humans walking toward them. Security Chief Zilax's primary eyes locked onto the monitor feeds, his secondary pair frantically scanning the dozen other screens displaying the chaos erupting across Sector 7. 6 armored figures moved through the facility's corridors like liquid death, their plasma weapons cutting through reinforced bulkheads as if they were made of smoke. Elite Vex'thul Hunters, Category 9 threat classification. The kind of beings that entire star systems surrendered to rather than face in combat. And they were headed straight for the processing area where one human civilian sat filling out visa paperwork. "Evacuate that sector now!" Zilax slammed his manipulator appendage against the emergency broadcast control. The facility's alarm system shrieked to life, strobing red emergency lighting cascading through every corridor. "All personnel, evacuate Sector 7 immediately. Lethal force authorized. This is not a drill." Medical Officer Keldra burst into the command center, her breathing apparatus flaring with panic. "The human, we need to get her out of there." According to YouTube analytics, 98% of viewers are not subscribed. That's a huge number. By subscribing the channel that is completely free, I'm trying. Zilax pulled up the containment area's direct feed, his voice rising to a pitch that would have been embarrassing under any other circumstance. The human, Olivia Smith, according to her application files, sat on a waiting bench, datapad in hand, looking mildly annoyed as the facility's emergency klaxons wailed around her. Security teams are 3 minutes out, and the hunters will reach her in 30 seconds. 30 seconds? Keldra's chromatophores flashed white with terror. She'd reviewed the human's medical scans during intake processing. Fragile bipedal structure, no natural weapons, no armor plating, no venom sacs or defensive capabilities whatsoever. Just soft skin stretched over a calcium-based skeletal frame that would shatter like decorative crystal against Vex'thul claws. "She needs to run!" The command center's tactical display showed the hunter's approach vector with brutal clarity. They'd bypassed every security checkpoint, disabled 3 automated defense turrets, and cut through 4 sealed blast doors in under 2 minutes. Military-grade precision, apex predator efficiency. Whatever diplomatic incident had prompted this extraction attempt, someone badly wanted this human specimen, and they'd sent the galaxy's deadliest mercenaries to collect her. "Why isn't she moving?" Zilax zoomed in on the containment area feed. The human had looked up from her datapad, head tilted slightly as the muffled sounds of plasma cutters grew louder beyond the processing area's main entrance. Her expression wasn't fear. It was irritation? Is she in shock? Keldra, could this be a fear paralysis response? Checking her biometrics now, Keldra pulled up the human's real-time vitals on a secondary screen. Heart rate, elevated but stable. Respiration, normal. Stress hormones, present but not spiking. She's not paralyzed. She's just annoyed. The main entrance to the processing area exploded inward in a shower of molten metal and superheated debris. 6 Vex'thul Hunters poured through the breach, their segmented armor gleaming beneath the emergency lighting. Plasma rifles raised and targeting systems painting the room with lethal red dots. And Olivia Smith stood up, not to run, not to hide. She stood up, set her datapad carefully on the bench, and sighed. "No," Zilax whispered, his voice hollow. "No, no, no!" The human reached down and grabbed a wooden plank, part of the bench's backing that had worked loose during years of use, and hefted it in both hands like it was the most natural thing in the galaxy. The hunters froze for a microsecond, probably as confused as Zilax was by the bizarre response. Then Olivia walked toward them. "What is she doing?" Keldra shrieked, her medical training completely inadequate for processing what she was witnessing. Humans were classified as a non-combat species. Diplomatic status, fragile physiology requiring specialized environmental controls. They weren't supposed to charge at Vex'thul Hunters armed with a piece of furniture. Zilax triggered every emergency protocol he had clearance to activate. "All security teams, converge on Sector 7. Medical units on standby. Diplomatic Corps, prepare for..." He stopped, his training failing to provide any protocol for what came next. Prepare for, I don't know what. The lead hunter raised his plasma rifle, the weapon's charging cell humming with enough energy to vaporize a commercial transport. At this range, there was no dodge, no defense, no possibility of survival for an unarmored organic being. Olivia didn't slow down. Her vitals... Kyldra stared at her medical readout in disbelief. She's not showing fear responses. Xylax, according to these readings, she's irritated. Like someone interrupted her during her lunch break. Xylax finished numbly, remembering the human's earlier complaint about the facility's processing delays. She'd been waiting for 3 hours to get her visa application reviewed. 3 hours of bureaucratic tedium. And now 6 of the galaxy's most dangerous killers had just added more delays to her day. The hunter fired. Olivia moved. The plasma bolt scorched the air where she'd been standing a fraction of a second earlier, the bench plank already swinging in a tight arc that defied every predictive model Xylax's combat analysis systems tried to generate. The wood, primitive, organic, completely non-threatening wood, connected with the hunter's plasma rifle with a crack that echoed through the audio feeds. The rifle clattered across the floor, sparking and damaged. The hunter stared at his empty claws. Olivia Smith, human civilian from a backwater planet called Earth, bounced the wooden plank against her palm once and smiled. Not a pleasant smile, the kind of smile that suggested she'd been having a very long day, and these hunters had just made it longer. "Okay," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the facility's audio systems. "Who's next?" The command center fell completely silent except for the rhythmic screaming of the emergency alarms. Kyldra's medical scanner fell from her manipulator appendages, clattering against the deck plating. Xylax tried to remember his training, his protocols, his entire educational background that had prepared him for every conceivable security scenario. None of it had prepared him for this. The second hunter lunged, claws extended, combat-grade augmentations pushing him forward at speeds that should have been impossible for the human eye to track. Olivia sidestepped, swung the plank, and sent 200 kilograms of armored Vex'thul warrior crashing into the wall hard enough to crack the reinforced plating. "Cancel the security teams," Xylax heard himself say. "What?" Kyldra turned to stare at him. "Cancel them." He couldn't look away from the monitors. "I don't think the human needs help." A third hunter opened fire. Olivia was already moving, the bench plank now serving as both shield and weapon, wood that shouldn't withstand plasma energy somehow deflecting the bolt just enough to send it wide. She closed the distance, struck twice, once to the hunter's weapon arm, once to his center mass, and left him groaning on the floor. "I think," Xylax said quietly, "we need to evacuate the hunters." The fourth hunter drew a plasma blade, 3 feet of superheated energy that could slice through starship hull plating, and swung it at the human's center mass in a strike that had ended 1,000 fights before this one. Olivia raised the wooden plank and blocked. The blade met wood with a hiss of vaporizing cellulose, but the plank held. Held because she'd angled it just right, braced it against her shoulder and hip in a way that distributed the force, turned the blade's edge at the last microsecond so it skated off instead of cutting through. Physics and leverage and some kind of combat instinct that shouldn't exist in a civilian from a non-combat species. "That's impossible!" Xylax was on his feet now, manipulator appendages gesturing wildly at the screen. "Those are Vex'thul Hunters. Elite operatives. That wood should be ash." The hunter pressed his advantage, blade coming in from 3 different angles in rapid succession. Each time, the plank was there, moving with a speed that made Xylax's combat analysis software throw error messages. The human was reading the hunter's body language, anticipating strikes before they landed, positioning herself inside his reach where the blade was less effective. Then she stepped forward and cracked the plank across his helmet hard enough to send him stumbling backward. The fifth hunter fired a stun pulse, electromagnetic discharge calibrated to incapacitate targets through most standard armor configurations. The blue-white bolt streaked across the processing area at near light speed. Olivia wasn't there anymore. She'd already moved, dropping into a roll that brought her past the firing line and directly into the hunter's guard. The plank came up in a short, brutal strike that connected with the underside of his weapon arm. The crack of impact echoed through the audio feed, followed immediately by the hunter's pained hiss as his stun rifle clattered to the floor. Her reflexes. Kaeldra stared at her readouts, chromatophores flickering through colors that indicated complete cognitive dissonance. Xylax, her neural response time is 0.03 seconds faster than our best combat pilots. That's impossible for an unaugmented organic. Everything about this is impossible. Xylax pulled up the hunter armor specifications on another screen just to confirm what he already knew. That armor is rated for ship-grade kinetic weapons. It has integrated shock absorption. It shouldn't crack from a wooden board? Kaeldra finished. I know. But it was cracking. The third hunter's chest plate showed visible fracture lines where Olivia had struck him. Not from the weapon itself. Wood couldn't generate that kind of force. From the impact. From the way she torqued her entire body into each strike, using momentum and leverage and her own body weight to amplify the force far beyond what her muscle mass should generate. The sixth and seventh hunters charged simultaneously, trying to overwhelm her with coordinated attacks from opposite vectors. Classic pincer maneuver, textbook Vex'thul pack tactics. Olivia spun the plank like a staff, using both ends in a flowing series of strikes that seemed almost choreographed. High, low, middle. The hunters' attacks met nothing but air while the wood found armor plating, weapon arms, helmet seals. Each impact sent hunters reeling, stumbling into each other, their coordination collapsing. Just wanted to finish my paperwork, the human muttered, ducking under a wild swing and driving her plank into the eighth hunter's midsection. Had a medical appointment at 3. Now I'm going to be late because you idiots decided to. She blocked another plasma blade strike, twisted, and sent that hunter crashing into a bank of waiting chairs. Decided to crash my Tuesday. The ninth hunter activated his personal shield generator, military-grade defensive technology that could withstand sustained plasma fire from multiple angles. The blue shimmer of the energy field surrounded him as he raised his weapon, confident in his invulnerability. Olivia hit the shield with her plank. The first strike made it flicker. The second made it spark. The third shattered it entirely, and the fourth sent the hunter sliding across the floor to join his groaning companions. Her bone density, Kaeldra's voice had gone very quiet, very calm, the kind of calm that preceded complete psychological breakdown. Xylax, according to these sensors, her bone density readings are breaking our equipment. The scanner thinks she has a skeletal structure made of compressed titanium alloy. Is the scanner malfunctioning? I wish it was malfunctioning. The 10th hunter attempted an intimidation display. Full body expansion, chromatophore display, and a roar that registered at 140 decibels. A roar designed by millions of years of evolution to trigger primal fear responses in prey species across multiple galaxies. Olivia laughed, actually laughed, the sound carrying clear amusement through the audio feed. "Oh, please," she said, shifting the plank to her other hand like it weighed nothing. "I've heard worse at family dinners. My Uncle Dave does better than that after 3 beers. She treated the hunter's subsequent attack like he was a rowdy teenager, sidestepped his charge, stuck out the plank to trip him, and watched him crash face first into the floor with the kind of exasperated patience usually reserved for handling intoxicated friends. "You guys done?" Olivia asked, looking at the remaining 2 hunters who had suddenly decided to reassess their tactical situation. She checked an imaginary chronometer on her wrist. "I have an appointment at 3 Guaos, and I'd really like to get my visa processed before the administrative offices close for the day." The command center's communications array crackled to life. "This is Commander Vex'thul of the Hunter Strike Force." The voice carried the kind of authority that made junior officers across the galaxy stand straighter. "What is the status of my extraction team?" Xylax stared at the monitor feed showing 10 elite hunters in various states of unconsciousness or tactical withdrawal, at the human standing in the center of the processing area, wooden plank resting casually on her shoulder, looking annoyed rather than exhausted. "Sir," Zilax said carefully, "your extraction team is extracting themselves from the floor, mostly." "Explain." "The human has, how did one even describe this?" "Has declined to be extracted, sir, with extreme prejudice, using furniture." Silence stretched across the communication channel. The 11th Hunter, apparently deciding this mission was above his pay grade, attempted to retreat toward the blown-out entrance. Olivia noticed the movement and sighed, an actual audible sigh of exasperation. "Running away?" she called after him. "Yeah, that's probably smart." The hunter ran faster. The 12th and final hunter, the strike team leader, based on his command insignia, straightened from his defensive crouch and made what was clearly a very difficult decision. He raised his manipulator appendages in the universal gesture of surrender, carefully placed his weapons on the floor, and backed away slowly. Olivia nodded approval. "See, that's the first sensible thing any of you have done." She turned toward one of the security cameras, seeming to look directly at the command center. "Hey, whoever's watching, can I please just get my paperwork processed now? Or are there more interruptions scheduled?" Kyldra made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. Zilax realized his primary and secondary mouths were hanging open and closed them with conscious effort. On the monitor, the human set her plank against the wall, picked up her datapad, and sat back down on what remained of the bench. She pulled up her visa application and continued filling out Form 7B, Section 12, Subsection C, as if the last 3 minutes hadn't completely shattered every combat doctrine in the Galactic database. "Sir," the communications officer's voice wavered. "Commander Vex'thul is demanding a full tactical analysis of the engagement." "Tell him," Zilax said quietly, "that we don't have one. Tell him the tactical analysis is human with wood, hunters without dignity." "I cannot tell a Vex'thul commander that, sir." "Then tell him the truth." Zilax gestured at the monitors. "Tell him his elite strike force just got defeated by a civilian having a bad day." Within 90 seconds, the command center had tripled its occupant count. Xeno combat specialists from 3 different departments crowded around the monitor feeds, their various appendages, tentacles, and manipulators gesturing frantically as they rewound and replayed the footage frame by frame. "Stop! There!" Senior tactical analyst R. Hill froze the playback at the moment Olivia blocked the plasma blade. "Magnify Section 7 Alpha." The image zoomed, enhanced, clarified, the wooden plank, the angle of contact, the micro-adjustment of the human's grip at the instant before impact. "That shouldn't work," R. Hill said flatly. "The thermal coefficient alone should ignite the organic material. She's using leverage to redirect the blade's energy vector, but the mathematics don't support." "The mathematics are wrong," another analyst interrupted. "Or our understanding of human physiology is wrong. Possibly both." Kyldra pulled up a comparison chart on the main display. "I've been running the engagement through our combat simulation protocols. Pre-engagement analysis gave the human a survival rate of 0.001%. That's 0.0001%. The simulation assumed she'd be neutralized within 2.3 seconds of contact." "What's the actual engagement time?" Zilax asked, though he'd been watching his chronometer throughout. 3 minutes, 47 seconds, and the human is still conscious, mobile, and... Kyldra checked her medical scanner again, as if hoping the readings had changed. "And bored. Her stress hormones are actually decreasing. She's calming down." On the monitor, Olivia had noticed one of the hunters trying to crawl toward his dropped weapon. She didn't even look up from her datapad, just reached out with one foot and kicked the plasma rifle further away. The hunter groaned and gave up. "Replay Section 9, R. Hill demanded, when she strikes the 7th Hunter's armor plating." The footage showed Olivia's plank connecting with the hunter's chest plate in a strike that looked almost casual. The armor, rated to withstand direct hits from ship-mounted kinetic weapons, cracked like decorative ceramic. "That's a wooden board," someone said unnecessarily. "Defeating military-grade composite armor with kinetic force, generated by soft muscle tissue wrapped around a calcium-based skeletal structure." Her reflexes. A neural specialist had joined the growing crowd, her sensory stalks quivering with agitation. Humans shouldn't have those reflexes without extensive augmentation. Our database lists them as having a standard neural response time of 0.2 seconds. She's operating at 0.05 seconds, or faster. "Maybe the database is wrong," Xilax suggested hopefully. "The database," Arhill said with the patience of someone explaining orbital mechanics to a child, "is compiled from medical scans of over 3,000 human subjects across 2 decades of contact. The margin of error is negligible." Then how? The facility's emergency communication channel crackled again. "This is Commander Vex'thul. I am entering the processing area personally. Prepare medical teams for human extraction." Every being in the command center turned to stare at Xilax. "Should we warn him?" Kyeldra asked quietly. "Warn a decorated Vex'thul commander that a human civilian with a piece of wood is a Category 9 threat?" Xilax's chromatophores flickered with dark humor. "I'm sure that would be well received." They watched the feeds as Commander Vex'thul strode through the breached entrance. He was larger than his subordinates, his armor decorated with commendations from a dozen conflicts, his movements carrying the absolute confidence of a being who had survived 3 centuries of combat across the galaxy. Olivia looked up from her datapad, saw him, and rolled her eyes. "Oh, come on, really? Is this like a hazing thing? Because I'm really not in the mood." "Human," Vex'thul's voice resonated with authority. "You will stand down and it's called leverage, guys." Olivia was on her feet now, plank in hand, her tone carrying the exasperated patience of a teacher explaining basic concepts for the 3rd time. "You're all armored for energy weapons, plasma resistance, thermal shielding, electromagnetic dispersion. Nobody thought about blunt force trauma because, apparently, you all forgot that physics exists." She gestured at the groaning hunters scattered around the processing area. "Plus, you all telegraph your moves like you're performing in slow motion. The shoulder drops before you swing, the hip rotates before you lunge, the weapon arm tenses before you fire. It's like watching someone announce their attacks 3 seconds in advance." Vex'thul's secondary eyes narrowed. "You speak of combat as if—" "Did nobody teach you basic hand-to-hand?" Olivia interrupted, and several analysts in the command center made sounds of distress at the sheer disrespect. "All those fancy weapons and armor, but your actual fighting technique is garbage. You rely on technology and intimidation instead of fundamentals." "Show me these fundamentals," Vex'thul said, lowering into a combat stance that had been refined over 3 centuries of warfare. Olivia shrugged. "Your funeral." What followed lasted exactly 7 seconds. The commander attacked with precision born of countless battles, feints, strikes, tactical positioning that would have overwhelmed any standard opponent. Olivia moved through his attacks like water, the plank an extension of her body. First move, a low strike that swept his forward leg, disrupting his stance. Second move, a high block that redirected his counterstrike into empty air. Third move, a thrust to his center mass that sent him stumbling backward. Then she had him. The plank pressed across his throat, pinning him against the wall with leverage that negated his strength advantage. His weapons were on the floor, his centuries of experience were useless against physics and positioning, and a human who fought like combat was breathing. "You done showing off?" Olivia asked conversationally. "Or should I keep going?" Vex'thul went very, very still. In the command center, Kyeldra was pulling up Earth's planetary classification, her manipulators trembling as she scrolled through the environmental data. Her homeworld. Xilax, look at this. The statistics painted an impossible picture. Gravity, 1.3 times galactic standard. Atmospheric pressure, compressed. Oxygen concentration, toxic to most species. Temperature variance, extreme. Weather systems, catastrophic. Tectonic activity, constant. And the predator list. Her homeworld has how many natural predators? Kyeldra's voice cracked. There are thousands of species capable of killing humans, and humans are somehow the dominant life form. They evolved in constant warfare, Arhill said quietly, his analysis taking on new horror. Not with each other, though they do that too, but with their entire planet, every day, from birth until death. Survival isn't a skill for them, it's baseline existence. Their bone density. The medical specialist was reading through Olivia's scans with new understanding. It's not abnormal for a human, it's standard. They need that density to survive their own gravity. Their reflexes aren't augmented, they're adapted to track predators that move faster than our combat armor. Their strength-to-weight ratio is optimized for fighting in conditions that would crush most of us. Xilax felt his worldview cracking like hunter armor under a wooden plank. If one untrained civilian can do this, what could a trained human military do? The silence in the command center was absolute. We classified them as non-combat species, Kyldra whispered. We put them in the same category as the peaceful tributarians and the harmonious collective. We assumed because they pursued diplomacy, they were incapable of violence. They didn't pursue diplomacy because they were weak, Arhill said, his voice hollow. They pursued diplomacy because they were strong enough not to need violence. On the monitor, Olivia released Commander Vex'thul, who sagged against the wall, his decorated armor now sporting several dents from a piece of furniture. She stepped back, tossed the plank onto the broken bench, and checked her chronometer again. Okay, seriously, can someone please process my visa now? I have been nothing but patient, and I really need to catch the 4:30 shuttle to Delta Station. Xilax triggered the Emergency Council Summons Protocol, a communication channel reserved for existential threats to galactic security. This is Security Chief Xilax of Processing Station Gamma 7. I am issuing a formal request for immediate reclassification of Earth and all human origin beings. On what grounds? The council representative's voice carried bureaucratic irritation. On the grounds, Xilax said carefully, watching Olivia sit back down and return to her paperwork, that we have been catastrophically wrong about literally everything regarding human capabilities. And if we don't fix this immediately, someone is going to start a war with them and we will all die. Clarify. A single human civilian just defeated 12 elite Vex'thul Hunters and their commander, using a piece of wood, in under 4 minutes, while complaining about paperwork delays. The communication channel went silent for a very long time. Finally, we'll convene emergency session immediately. Olivia dusted off her jacket, standard civilian attire, nothing reinforced or armored, and examined the bench plank with the kind of attention someone might give a kitchen utensil after preparing a meal. She ran her thumb along the edge, checking for splinters, then set it down with a satisfied nod. That casual gesture, the aftermath inspection, the complete lack of adrenaline crash, the way she transitioned from combat to mundane concern about wood splinters, was somehow more terrifying than the violence itself. Final medical analysis complete, Kyldra announced, her voice steady despite the trembling of her manipulators. She projected the comprehensive scan results onto the main display. Bone density, 1.8 times galactic standard for comparable body mass. Muscle fiber efficiency, 240% of predicted output. Neural pathway response time, faster than our combat-grade augmentation implants. Cardiovascular efficiency, designed for sustained high-output activity in low-oxygen environments. The data painted a picture of a being designed by evolution's cruelest hand, optimized not for peace, but for survival in conditions that would kill most galactic species within hours. Recovery time from combat exertion, Kyldra continued, approximately 45 seconds. Current status, resting heart rate, normal respiration, stress hormones returning to baseline. She's not exhausted, she's bored. Olivia looked up at the nearest security camera and waved. Hey, you guys really need to update your threat assessments. I'm like average for a human. Maybe slightly below average, honestly. I work in data entry. The command center went silent. Below average, R. Hill repeated faintly. In the processing area, Commander Vex'thul had pushed himself into a sitting position, his decorated armor creaking with new dents. Around him, his hunters were surrendering without being asked, weapons placed carefully on the floor, manipulators raised in submission, retreat postures adopted with the kind of urgency usually reserved for evacuation protocols. You, Vex'thul's voice carried a tremor that 3 centuries of combat had never produced. You weren't even trying to kill us. Olivia turned to look at him, genuinely confused. Kill you? I was just defending myself. You guys attacked me while I was doing paperwork. She shrugged, the gesture somehow conveying vast implications. If I'd wanted you dead, you'd be dead. That's kind of the point of restraint. The horrified understanding that crashed through the command center was almost physical. She'd been holding back. Every strike calculated not for maximum damage, but for minimum necessary force. Every movement designed to incapacitate rather than kill. 12 elite hunters and their commander, and she'd treated them with the kind of careful restraint someone might use when removing an insect from their home. Annoying, but not worth actual harm. The diplomatic incident, Zilak said suddenly, pieces clicking into place. The extraction order. Someone thought humans needed protection from station security protocols. We were trying to rescue her, Caldra said, laughing with an edge of hysteria. We saw a fragile species in bureaucratic detention and assumed she was in danger. So we sent the most dangerous beings in the galaxy to extract her, Zilax finished. And she defended herself. From her rescuers, who didn't realize she never needed rescuing in the first place. The lead hunter, still conscious barely, raised one manipulator appendage. Commander, request permission to request asylum. Vex'thul stared at his subordinate. Asylum? From what? From having to file a mission report explaining how we were defeated by... The hunter gestured helplessly at Olivia, who had returned to her datapad and was now reading through visa requirements with mild interest. By furniture. Asylum denied, Vex'thul said wearily. We all have to live with this. Caldra was already updating the medical database, her manipulators flying across the interface. Updating human classification. Previous designation. Fragile, non-combat, requires environmental support. New designation. Extreme caution advised. Deathworld physiology. Do not threaten. Do not engage. Do not assume limitations based on appearance. Make it larger, Zilax suggested. Bold text. Maybe some warning colors. Adding flashing alert indicators, Caldra confirmed. The Council emergency channel activated, multiple voices talking over each other in controlled panic. Reviewed the footage. Military analysis confirms. Unanimous vote for immediate reclassification. Earth moved to extreme caution category effective immediately. All human interactions require diplomatic oversight. Someone contact the Vex'thul Species Council. That last one caused a stir. Zilax watched the feeds as high-level communications cascaded across galactic networks. Military experts reviewing the footage, tactical analysts running new simulations, xenobiologists recalculating everything they thought they knew about human limitations. And at the center of it all, one human civilian filling out Form 7B, Section 14, occasionally pausing to make sure she spelled her home address correctly. 2 hours later, the Galactic Council's formal apology arrived simultaneously with news that the Vex'thul Species Council had issued their own diplomatic statement to the human ambassador. The ambassador's response, forwarded through official channels, read, Olivia got in a bar fight, basically. She's fine. Maybe don't send armed extraction teams next time. Just ask. We're really good at asking. The bar fight description somehow made it worse. Humans classified armed combat with elite mercenaries the same way other species classified minor altercations over beverages. The casual dismissal, the complete lack of drama in their assessment, it spoke to a species so accustomed to violence that defeating Galaxy-class warriors didn't even register as remarkable. "Visa processed," Zilax announced, his voice carrying through the facility's communication system. "Ms. Smith, your approval code is displayed on your data pad. You're cleared for travel to Delta Station. We apologize for the delay." Olivia stood, picked up her bag, and walked toward the exit. She paused next to Commander Vex'thul, who was still sitting against the wall, his worldview in pieces around him. "Hey," she said gently, "you fought well, really. Your technique's solid, just adapt it for different opponent types, yeah? Not everyone's gonna fight the way you expect." Then she left, her footsteps echoing in the processing area, leaving behind 12 defeated hunters, one shattered commander, and a command center full of beings who would never look at humans quite the same way again. "Update the threat database," Zilax said quietly. "Every human, every one of them. Flag them all." "As what?" someone asked. Zilax watched the monitor feed showing Olivia walking calmly toward the shuttle bay, datapad in hand, looking like any other civilian traveler heading to their next destination. "As beings, we desperately hope remain friendly." The new security protocols were distributed across the Galactic network within 6 hours. Updated human interaction guidelines, effective immediately. All humans are to be treated as potential Category 9 combat threats, regardless of apparent physical condition, profession, or demeanor. Security personnel must complete mandatory training module, Deathworld Physics, and Why Your Armor Won't Help. Warning signage must be posted in all human-accessible areas. Suggested text: Caution, human present. Do not provoke. Do not assume limitations. Do not make sudden movements. Furniture in human waiting areas to be replaced with fixed seating. No detachable components, nothing that could be weaponized. Note, humans can weaponize almost anything. This is harm reduction, not prevention. Under no circumstances should security staff assume human limitations match their appearance. Elderly humans, small humans, injured humans, and sleeping humans are all still humans. Zilax read through the protocols one final time before authorizing their distribution. His manipulators still trembled slightly, a stress response he suspected would last for several cycles. Across the facility, maintenance crews were already removing bench furniture, replacing it with molded seating fused directly to the floor. The broken plank from Olivia's self-defense incident, the official terminology, sanitized for diplomatic consumption, had been sealed in a transparent case and mounted in the command center. Beneath it, someone had added a plaque. Reminder: never underestimate humans. It felt inadequate, like posting a caution wet floor sign next to a collapsed star. 3 systems away, Galactic High Command convened an emergency session. The chamber, designed to hold representatives from 1,000 species, was unusually full for an unscheduled meeting. Earth. Fleet Admiral Xylar pulled up the planetary data. According to human classification systems, they call it a garden world. Moderate climate, abundant resources, stable ecosystem, paradise by their standards. By their standards, someone repeated hollowly. They evolved in constant warfare with their own planet, the Admiral continued. Hurricanes that can level cities, earthquakes that split continents, temperature ranges that span from lethal heat to lethal cold, volcanoes, tsunamis, droughts, floods, and approximately 8.7 million other species, many of which consider humans to be food. And they still developed art, a cultural analyst added, her voice filled with confused awe. Philosophy, music, comedy. They created civilization while their planet was actively trying to kill them. They built museums and libraries and theaters between natural disasters. They're terrifying, someone said. They're fascinating, someone else countered. Both, the Admiral concluded. They are absolutely both. The vote was unanimous. Earth would receive full diplomatic status with recommended caution protocols. No military action. No resource extraction without explicit permission. No unauthorized visits. And absolutely, under no circumstances would anyone attempt to rescue humans ever again. The ripple effects spread faster than light-speed communication. Within a week, human security contractors were receiving employment offers from a dozen major corporations. The pay packages were staggering. Hazard rates calculated for beings who apparently didn't understand the concept of hazard. Within 2 weeks, Commander Vex'thul submitted a formal request to the human military for combat training consultation. The request was humble, polite, and included phrases like, "If you have time," and "We understand if you're too busy." That would have been unthinkable from a Vex'thul commander before recent events. Within a month, the galactic perspective had shifted fundamentally. Humans weren't weak. Everyone else was just sheltered, protected, raised in gentle environments where survival was assumed rather than earned. Earth was reclassified. Garden World, human designation, and Class 7 Deathworld, Galactic Standard, depending on whose documentation you read. Multiple species submitted diplomatic mission requests. All specified orbital observation only. No surface landings. Safe distance highly recommended. Olivia reached the reception desk at Delta Station 14 hours after her incident. The young receptionist, a tributarian with soft purple chromatophores that kept flickering between fear yellow and respect green, processed her visa with trembling manipulators. "Welcome to Delta Station, Ms. Smith," he managed. "Your accommodations are in the human quarter, Section 7. Please enjoy your—" He noticed Olivia watching his fear response and tried to control his chromatophores. Failed. "Look," Olivia said gently, "I'm not going to hurt anyone who doesn't attack me first. I'm here for a data analysis conference. Very boring. Lots of spreadsheets. Nobody's getting hurt unless the coffee machine breaks, and even then it's just me suffering." She laughed, a warm, friendly sound that somehow made the receptionist more nervous rather than less. "Most humans are way tougher than me anyway. I'm pretty average, honestly. My sister Emma does competitive martial arts. Now she's scary." The receptionist's chromatophores went white, the tributarian equivalent of existential terror. Then he fainted. Olivia caught the data pad before it hit the desk, sighed, and looked around for assistance. A senior staff member rushed over, carefully maintaining a respectful distance of 3 meters. "Is he okay?" Olivia asked. "He's fine," the staff member said quickly. "Just overwhelmed. First day. Not used to humans," Olivia finished. "Yeah, I've noticed that's been a thing lately." She set the data pad down gently, picked up her approved visa credentials, and shouldered her bag. "I really need to work on my people skills." She headed toward the residential section, muttering to herself about Weird Tuesday and overreactions, and maybe I should take that sensitivity training course Emma keeps mentioning. Behind her, the senior staff member carefully revived the unconscious receptionist while simultaneously filing an incident report that would add another data point to the growing understanding of human capabilities. No violence, no threats, no actual danger whatsoever. And yet a trained station receptionist had lost consciousness from pure psychological overwhelm at the realization that humans like Olivia Smith, data analysts who considered themselves below average, walked among them as casually as anyone else. Back at Processing Station Gamma 7, Zilak stood in the command center, staring at the mounted bench plank behind its transparent shield. Already it had become something of a pilgrimage site. Security personnel from other stations requesting transfers just to see the artifact. "It's just wood," Kaeldra said, standing beside him. "It's proof," Zilax corrected. "Proof that everything we thought we knew was wrong. Proof that the universe is stranger and more dangerous than our protocols accounted for. Proof that humans are—" He trailed off, unable to find adequate words. "Are what?" Kaeldra prompted. Zilax watched the monitor feed showing the newly empty processing area, the fixed seating, the warning signs, the updated protocols that would ripple across known space and fundamentally change how every species interacted with humanity. Proof that humans are exactly what they claim to be, he said finally, just people trying to get through their day, and if we're very, very lucky, they'll keep being friendly. The bench plank sat in its case, silent and wooden, and absolutely terrifying in its implications. Beneath it, the plaque's message seemed to glow in the command center's lighting. Reminder, never underestimate humans. It was, Zilax reflected, the most important lesson the galaxy would ever learn.